It bewilders me that there are 11 Halloween movies, and that's including Rob Zombie's remakes and the newest incarnation that is set to completely override every sequel to bring us back to a coherent canon, except before all that, Halloween 2 was originally meant to conclude Myers' reign of terror, with original creators John Carpenter and Deborah Hill uncertain about the prospects of returning to the franchise unless future installments deviated and became an anthology centered around the titular holiday season. Naturally, of course, this didn't go to plan, and what we were left with was this enigmatic bunion on the foot of an increasingly campier and schlocky franchise. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, has a very mixed reception amongst horror fans. Considered a critical and commercial failure for its time, I've yet to meet anyone with a universally positive or negative thing to say about it. At best, I think today's consensus is generally just meh, so let's talk about it. Retrospectively, I think for its lack of appeal or legacy, Season of the Witch is ironically the most Halloween of any of the Halloween films. That isn't necessarily a good thing, but once you get it out of your system that our lovable antagonist isn't showing up to stab anyone in the face, you can't deny its attempt at originality. The story follows Dr. Dan Chalice as he helps a girl called Ellie investigate the strange connection between her father's disturbing murder and a Halloween novelty manufacturing company called Silver Shamrock. For the vast majority of the runtime, the motive is completely ambiguous. In fact, I would mildly argue the film is actually more of a light noir than a horror movie, both stylistically and just how the story is delivered with a lingering sense of mystery, danger, and intrigue. It constantly calls attention to these ominous men in black and the CCTV cameras that rule over the anxious-ridden town. The murder that sets the events in motion is quite jarringly established, especially given the unusual method of execution and how the killer proceeds to immolate himself after being witnessed, as if to suggest the entire thing is some sort of extremist cult conspiracy. Excluding the dumb television commercials for the original Halloween for this movie within a movie effect, the film does echo a lot of similar elements to Carpenter's style while adding its own spin to the formula. You can definitely tell that director Tommy Lee Wallace, who co-edited the first Halloween, is trying super hard to capture the menacing and obscure presence of Michael Myers, but never comes quite close to reaching it, even if the men in, well, not so black, do have a perpetually eerie presentation thanks to the cinematography. Like I said, when it behaves more like a mystery thriller than a horror movie, it maintains a relatively uncomfortable atmosphere and mysterious tone throughout. It's kind of hard to articulate why the film is so weirdly off-putting at times. I guess there's a degree of uncanniness to it that's quite rare in horror movies. It's by no means unique, purely because Wallace very evidently takes heavy inspiration from Don Siegel's adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, here's the thing, we could do a whole video on Body Snatchers because it's the perfect narrative for realism meets the unnatural, yet sticking with the general principle in both Siegel's film and I'd argue the even more superior Philip Kaufman adaptation, which tells the story of a covert alien invasion where aliens consume and manifest into replicas of their victims. The irony of the story is how these organically created pod people make the film feel increasingly inorganic as the invasion escalates. At some point, the story becomes immensely overwhelming, because it never drops the curtain on its conventional everyday presentation, and so seeing the aliens adapt to our world and consume their hosts unbeknownst to our heroes catches you off guard and leads to a deeply shocking revelation. You could say that's what Season of the Witch is trying to be. It feels like a modest version of Body Snatchers given the men in Not So Black are eventually revealed to be androids, which was super underwhelming to be honest, and once we finally get a peek inside the ominous factory, the motive is a pretty substantial U-turn to what you might have been expecting. It turns out that Silver Shamrock are trying to resurrect witchcraft by placing a fragment of Stonehenge in each of their Halloween masks that consumes the energy of its wearer, kills them, and unleashes a plague of insects and snakes to kill those around them. Yes, that scene where an innocent child literally decomposes in front of his parents is definitely one of the more disturbing things I've seen in a horror movie, not only because it's totally thrown at you from left field without warning, but I briefly remember seeing this scene as a kid and never again would I wear a Halloween mask. Now you know why I don't dress up. While it's the only genuinely frightening scene, it still completely sells you on the threat posed by the antagonists, because the scene that precedes it is children buying the very masks that contain such evil, igniting this intense sense of urgency. I do like the symbolic relationship between the evil within the masks in Season of the Witch and that of Michael Myers. It's sort of like the reverse effect, where Myers' worn-out William Shatner mask exudes power and dominance, while here, the masks absorb and decay the victim. I think it links into Wallace's emotional intent with the film. It wasn't going for something obscene or graphic like the studio wanted, it was more about making a film that felt real and believable, and gradually unearthing something more supernatural and bizarre that still felt partially palpable. In the case of the witchcraft angle, it seems like a story that is trying to feel more authentically Halloween, considering the holiday is rooted in the Celtic harvest festival of Samhain, where folks believe the end of summer signified a time when the gap between the spirit world and the real world lessened, and what we now commercialise as costumes were once used to protect people from evil spirits. In Season of the Witch, that protection is now a curse, and so it becomes this paradoxically anti-Halloween where it highlights the disconnect between the superstitious nature of the tradition and the gradually desensitized corporate intrusion that's taking it over. I suppose, on the one hand, you could see it as a bit anti-capitalist in tone, given it replaces the cultural artistry of the original film's villain with an actual corporate entity. Whether or not it's being satirical is anyone's guess, but it doesn't exactly try to hide its arbitrary attempt at commentary when television is seen to literally rot children's brains, and so the protagonist's aim is to stop the transmission of Shamrock's entertainment horror-thon, much to the dismay of children. Since television has an overruling presence throughout the film as well, it's somewhat a villain in its own right, along with all the commercial products that children again are literally falling victim to. I mean, the more I think about it, the more cynical the film becomes. The way our protagonist falls in love, only for Ellie to become an android seemingly out of nowhere, just feels forced to give us some hopelessly shocking outcomes similar to Body Snatchers. I do admire the choice to go for an ambiguous conclusion, however, where we aren't sure if Chalice got all the transmissions off the air, but nonetheless, it adds a dynamic twist to the whole commercial villainy angle, where it seems the evil of Halloween can never be stopped. Even with that said, the overall storytelling in Season of the Witch is a bit shallow. It seems to have a vision for something profound and compelling, yet by the end, I couldn't help but feel a little deflated, as if I missed something important to give it that needed context. Although it is fair to assume I may have overestimated what to expect, when it really just comes across as a passable chapter within an anthology akin to The Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt. Considering Season of the Witch was somewhat an experiment in putting an anthology into practice, it was always going to live under the shadow of Michael Myers, who had captured the terrified imagination of audiences and had sparked a new generation of slasher horrors. He was an immediate icon to our real-world fears, a manifestation of everything the genre had to offer, which made him irreplaceable, leaving the third film with an astronomically massive hole it was never destined to fill. It comes as no surprise that by removing such a crucial component, it would leave Season of the Witch feeling noticeably hollow at times. At the start I said putting Myers aside lets you appreciate the uniqueness that's there, but it will always linger in the back of your mind. Maybe that's the emotional and narrative beat I was missing, something to contain the mystery more indefinitely. I did sense the conflict and inconsistency of the screenplay, given the original veteran writer Nigel Neal wanted his name discredited due to the conflicts over the script's contents, which was later revised by Carpenter and Wallace. As a result, for as stylistically well put together it is, there is a noticeable lack of clarity of what type of film it wants to be. I agree with the meh consensus, but I wouldn't entirely write it off, given I did like what it seemed to hint at. Like with Myers, there is a danger hiding in plain sight, and it presents a real social fear for parents who feel their kids are being preyed upon on a night where horror is celebrated. Hi everyone, as always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite Halloween sequel is. Mine's H2O for some reason, I don't know why, I just remember really enjoying it when I saw it, but it has been a while, so who knows how that's aged on me. If you enjoy what I do here, you want to get early access, vote on future videos, you can do so by heading over to Patreon and supporting me there. That's the best way to keep the lights on here. And as always, you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's great to see people there sharing their thoughts on particular matters of media and horror. It's always really cool. So I am genuinely grateful for the support. And as always, on this Halloween month, stay safe, and I'll see you all very soon. I'm going to go to bed now because I'm very sick and I'm trying to recover. Bye.